If you both ask your questions, I'll answer it real quick.
I got two quick questions with two quick answers. Or if you give it to me. One, why you didn't defend yourself if you could have, and two, what was the transition like whenever you went from being a prosecutor to put people in jail, and if anyone inside knew you as a prosecutor, former prosecutor, and how did you respond to that?
Right. Well, I didn't defend myself because I would have lost. Lawyers are the worst clients, and in fact, I talk about during the trial, I wasn't such a great witness at first because I was so mad. The U.S. Attorney's Office had 2 lawyers on my case, including this senior prosecutor who was African American. I hated that guy, and when he cross-examined me, it came through. And so he got started. The judge declared a lunch break, and my lawyer took me in the hall and let me have it, and said my anger was coming through. It was kind of almost, she didn't say it, but it was almost kind of like I did it. I could tell she was thinking. And it was just because I was so angry. So lawyers often make the worst client, and even not so great witnesses. So I knew the technical stuff. Again, if you go to trial in D.C. in front of those old black people, you must have your shoes shined. That's rule number 1. So I knew that. I knew all that stuff. But in terms of kind of calming down, chilling out, and just telling what happened, it turned out to be harder to do. And there was this bizarre schizophrenia, to answer the second part of your question, about going to work every day, putting bad guys in jail, and then coming home at night and working with my lawyer and investigator about how I could keep my ass out of jail. So it was weird. Last question. Yes, sir.
What, with all this excitement with the new president being African-American, all this change in the air, kind of new blood in the system, what can we do in order to affect change and really move in the direction that you are really kind of focusing on? How can we take on that mantle?
Correct. And that's what the last chapter of the book is about. So there's a number of things that you can do to encourage the president, who definitely gets it. He says all of the right things, including that it's counterproductive to lock up people for nonviolent drug offenses. He doesn't think that's smart public policy, but he's got 2 wars going on, a failing economy, so he needs to be moved. So the last chapter suggests a number of measures from the non-controversial. So if you want to get the dope boys off the street corners, the best thing you can do is to get them to graduate from high school, because the people who are standing in the corners by and large are young men who haven't graduated from high school. And we know how to do that. It's controversial. My mom doesn't like it, but the way we do it is to pay them. We pay them to go to high school. It works. It's cost effective. Gets them off the street corner. But other ways, anything you can do to help a kid graduate from high school will make the street safer and reduce the level of incarceration. And since this is the last question, and you did ask, the controversial suggestion in the book is jury nullification. So when you are a juror, or when you know people who sit on juries, tell them just because some prosecutor tells them to convict, that doesn't mean that they have to. So they should think about whether it's in their best interest to lock this guy up. And I learned about jury nullification as a prosecutor in D.C. During training, the rookies were told that sometimes we would convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that a guy was guilty, and the jurors would acquit. And the reason they wouldn't do this, and the prosecutors, they would kind of roll their eyes when they said this, is because they didn't want to send another black man to jail. And it turned out to be true. We started trying cases, we rookies did, and we saw that. Usually happened in drug cases, almost never in cases of violent crime. And when I started teaching, it was the first thing I wanted to study. And I found out it's constitutional. In fact, it's a proud part of our American constitutional tradition. It's legal. No juror has ever been successfully prosecuted for doing that because, again, you have a constitutional right. The weird thing is the Supreme Court decided this case that I talk about that says that even though jurors have this power, they don't have to be told about this. And so lawyers can't tell jurors about it in the courtroom. But there's nothing to stop Paul Butler or you from telling your friends, again, to think about whether it makes sense to lock up someone for a nonviolent drug transaction, either an adult using or an adult selling a small amount to another adult. If I had one of those cases as a juror, then I would vote for acquittal. So I think we're going to go over to the other room now. I'll be happy to continue this conversation there. Thank you all very much for coming. Thank you. Thank you for coming.